So now that we understand the different ways we can deliver services to mobile devices, it's important for us to understand what exactly are these mobile devices that we are going to be targeting. It's not as simple as you might think, so it's helpful to review what exactly we gain and we lose from targeting these devices. For example, some of the advantages we gain with mobile devices is that we have access to sensors that wouldn't exist in non-mobile devices. It's not common you find laptops or desktops that have any kind of GPS capability in them, or likewise that they have any kind of motion sensors. It's not often that someone takes one of these devices and puts it in their pocket or their purse and walks around with it. That's part of what makes it a non-mobile device. However, by virtue of being a mobile device, it means that there's no cables connecting to it. So what are we going to do about power? Well, we get our power from a battery. And clearly a battery is not going to give you as much power for as long as a direct connection to a power source. So we need to understand that even though we gain access to different technologies and capabilities when we create these applications for these devices, we need to make sure that we don't burden that which we do not have too much of. So for power, that battery, your application, make sure it does not take too much power. Otherwise, there's a good chance that users will uninstall your application. That'll be the last of it. I doubt they'll reinstall it or give it another chance. But it's important that we understand these advantages and disadvantages, because if we look at this graph, we will notice that it is expected this year, 2014, the number of consumer devices connected to the internet, the majority will be mobile devices versus non-mobile devices. That's why we have to target mobile over non-mobile. So let's break down mobile devices further into two different categories. Let's look at smartphones and feature phones. What's the difference between the two? If you have a look at these devices, you'll see that some of them are very clearly not smartphones. You'll see a Motorola Razr on there. Not a smartphone. Some very clearly are. You see an iPhone on there. Easily, that's a smartphone. But there's also a Nokia on there. Is that a smartphone or is it not? Now, some people would say yes, some people would say no. Let's have a look at what has changed and what has caused this to be ambiguous as to whether it is or is not a smartphone. The first thing we want to look at in terms of what has changed over time is the hardware. Hardware changes have been phenomenal. We have larger screen sizes now, touch screens even. These are things that are common traits of smartphones. If we do not see a large screen, if we cannot touch it to open an application, it's not commonly thought of as a smartphone. We also need to understand that the processors are going to be significantly better and faster in a smartphone than in a feature phone. Also consider the amount of memory that is available and the amount of storage. In fact, storage is such an important difference between smartphones and feature phones that they become selling points for smartphones. Did you want to buy the 16 gigabyte version, the 32 gigabyte version, and so on? You will never find a feature phone being sold with a different storage capacity option. It's very much a smartphone trait. Improvements in hardware have resulted in improvements to the operating systems that run on them. Now here you see a list of different smartphone and feature phone operating systems. And the smartphone operating systems, just about everybody would look at them and say, yes, that is indeed a smartphone operating system. Android, iOS, BlackBerry, we even have Windows Phone. These are all smartphone operating systems. However, some of the other ones will see Symbian on there. Well, is it or isn't it? It's up for debate. But certainly, older devices running Symbian on older hardware are much more likely to be considered feature phones now, even though back when they were brand new to the market, they may have been the best phone available for purchase. So if we take a look at all of these different capabilities between smartphones and feature phones, it's very easy for us to pinpoint, well, it has this feature, it has that feature, it can do this, it can't do this. This is the difference between smartphones and feature phones. But usually what it comes down to is something the user can't define, something they can't put into words. They just hold it in their hands and they know this is a smartphone.